You sound like a robot.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay, welcome everyone, and good
Oh,
morning, good
that I can hear.
afternoon, good
Sorry, go
evening,
ahead.
everyone. This is the world today, and I'm your host, Dr. Sophia Catherine Rothschild, and with me today is Dr. Monica Gandhi. Dr. Monica Gandhi, the professor at UCSF Medical School, and she's also an expert in pandemics. And now, Monica, Dr. Gandhi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Uh, One of the main thing that up to now we've been having the booster shots in regard to the pandemic, and we've been doing it now like every so often have to get a booster shots. But we know I noticed that we're no longer doing the booster shots. We're now getting the annual shots every year for the in regards to the COVID-19. Could you explain to us what's the difference?
Yes, actually, I will say the CDC just yesterday said that older people should get a booster shot now, but I'm not sure that I agree with them. And the reason I'll tell you why is that when the disease became what's called endemic, the WHO has recommended yearly shots, especially for older people, those who are immunocompromised, or those who have multiple comorbidities. That is partially for simplicity and partially because our vaccines from the past work. Doesn't mean they completely go away. What's called antibodies can come down with time, but what's called B cells and T cells that you got from your old shots, they're still around. And actually, even getting infected, because a lot of people had COVID, gives you immunity as well. So I really agree with the WHO stance is to say that vulnerable people should get shots once yearly. Totally makes sense with the flu shot. But the CDC is always kind of a little off kilter, and they just said yesterday that older people should get booster shots twice a year. I don't know if people are going to listen to that.
Okay, very good, very good. Thanks for that. In regards to in, vulnerable populations, what groups are the vulnerable groups when it comes to this pandemic?
Yeah, it's a really good question because vulnerable groups are who we need to protect. And the remaining groups that are still vulnerable to COVID-19 are those who are older, over 65, those who are on immunosuppressant medications, so taking medications for a transplant or chemotherapy, and then those who have five or more comorbidities like heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, multiple comorbidities. So basically, it's saying that those are still the vulnerable groups, and there are two ways to protect them. One is to get regular boosters, annual boosters. And the second is if my older parent, for example, who's 89, if he gets infected, which he did, I would really recommend Paxlovid, which is the treatment. It's the only treatment that we have in this country. We're going to get some new ones. But right now, all we have is Paxlovid. It's a 5-day course. And those are still the groups that are vulnerable. So I would get them treatment and get them annually boosted.
Excellent, very good. Because I have a friend of mine. Is in his 70s. He had what called the long COVID. Could you explain to us what's a long COVID?
Yes, so long COVID, actually, just to take a step back, every severe virus can cause long-standing symptoms. And in fact, when we've been looking back on time, this was described with the influenza pandemic in 1918. So it's this phenomenon called post-viral syndromes. It can occur with any virus. And the risk factors seem to be having severe disease to begin with. At least the data and the epidemiology shows that people at the beginning of this pandemic of COVID who have got severe disease were more likely to get it. And we've seen decreases in long COVID over time because the severity of disease has decreased, partially because of the Omicron variant not being as bad, but mainly because we have a lot of immunity in the population between vaccines and infection. But if you do have COVID symptoms that last, there are three options for you. One is to enroll into a clinical trial, which is called recovery. And really, frankly, what's being studied are three things that seem to work. One is metformin, which is an anti-inflammatory as well as having effects on diabetes. That seems very promising by some observational studies. So does Paxlovid itself. So does getting another booster. And the fourth one are antihistamines or even fluvoxamine, which is in the SSRI class. So there are four potential options, and getting into these clinical trials would really help us determine which ones are going to work. It's either from inflammation. Some people think it could be the virus hanging around, but most people are going towards inflammation as the most likely reason. Just like in HIV, you can get inflammation from viruses.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Should the people that are most vulnerable, should they continue to wear a mask, or do they no longer need a mask?
Well, everyone has a different opinion on that. I personally think that after the vaccines were available, I used to talk about masks all the time, but I was not interested in masking after the vaccines were available because I thought what the vaccines did was more people would take it if you say, you go back to normal, life goes back to normal, get vaccinated and move on. And that's what they did in Europe. They stopped masking and it made the uptake higher. So I'm really interested in positive messaging, optimistic messaging, and mask data has not been as great as we thought it was at the beginning. There's been some really important systematic reviews that it doesn't seem to block a virus, especially cloth masks, simple surgical masks, really only N95s, really fit tested blocks virus, and those are very uncomfortable to wear. So, humans like to see each other's faces. Humans like to go back to normal. We have a lot of immunity in the population now, and I personally am not pushing masking at all.
Excellent, excellent. Um, um, this is a quick, good, very, very good update. What else would you tell us regarding the current situation with the COVID in regards to are there any plan to come up with any new vaccines, any new plans in that regard?
Yes, it's a good question. Well, one thing is that COVID is always going to be with us, and actually we knew that early from the start because it's in animals. So just to know that every season we're going to have to deal, just like we deal with influenza, RSV, other cold viruses, we had to expect, especially in the winter's peaks of COVID. Luckily, we have really good tools for COVID. We don't have that kind of tools for many other viruses, and those tools are vaccines and therapeutics. So the vaccine, we're still on what's called XBB 1.5. That's a very old variant now. It's hardly any strains in this country that variant. We're on to a new variant, JN1 and others. But the current vaccine booster that's available is directed against an older variant. Luckily, any boost gives you kind of stimulates your T cells and B cells, so it really doesn't matter that it's directed against an old variant. It's been shown to protect against the new variant. So we're probably, in terms of what we're getting for new vaccines, what's being studied is nasal vaccines, ones that you can maybe block any transmission, block any virus getting in your system, that could block even the cold-like symptoms, the more minor symptoms. People would really like that. It's absolutely being studied in the next generation vaccine campaign. Don't know if they're going to work. We haven't had a good nasal vaccine ever, but it's worth trying. And then there's what are called whole virus vaccines. Instead of just showing you the spike protein, which is the way our vaccines work, show someone the whole virus, and that's under development as well. So we will have new vaccines, and importantly, we're going to have new therapeutics. And what I mean by that, and I think that's actually very exciting, is that new antiviral compounds that one's made by Shinogi, it's available in Japan, one's made by the Chinese company, but we'll get the same thing as Paxlovid, but without the side effects, without all that ritonavir. So I'm actually very hopeful for the antivirals coming and just having tools after tools for COVID as we live with it.
Okay, excellent. Once again, as always, thank you very much, Dr. Gandhi, for giving us this very valid update. Any closing comments you want to leave for our audience?
The one thing I want to say is that COVID was so terrible. The pandemic was so terrible, but we do have tools. We do have scientific advances. We want people to trust public health. And I think that we're always going to have scientific advances that happen soon. Now for pandemics, we're in a new era scientifically. And so people, I do want them to go back to normal life. Don't worry too much. We have the tools and there are really advantages in being around other human beings. We have a lot of loneliness. We have a lot of effects also from the lockdown. So I hope that people will feel comfortable sort of going back to their normal lives with these tools.
Yes, indeed, and I kind of fall in regards to rebuke. Many in the medical community did not take seriously a lot of these conspiracy theories. And I think going forward, we need to do a better job, going after these individuals who keep pushing out this nonsense about, taking supplements to get rid of COVID.
There's no doubt these vaccines and therapeutics work. So I agree. There's been a lot more misinformation than any other time, and that's true actually.
And the sad thing that the people who are spreading these misinformation, they took the vaccine. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
interesting.
it's been a really polarizing,
Yes,
difficult time in
indeed,
science.
indeed.
Lots
Yeah.
of notions, and I agree with you.
And once again, Dr. Gandhi, the pleasure as always, and thank you so much. And the thank you for all you have done in this era in keeping us safe. All right,
Thank you so much.
and you have a good one. Bye bye.
Okay, I'm so glad that worked out. Sorry about all these fits and starts. Thank you again, both of you.
Bye bye. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, bye bye.
Okay, next guest.
I, I think this is I may want to call you back on this because I have strong feelings. I'm a traditional liberal Democrat, and I think San Francisco has always been there. I think what has happened in the last few years is that the public defender wing of progressive politics
Can I take a seat, please?
is really kind of taken over the left and has created, I think, a big tent. They have created a big tent in politics that is not good for them. And it's sort of funny because I'm a downtown urbanist. I don't own a car. I bike, I support density and housing and all this stuff. So it's funny because I will go to Western neighborhoods that are much more suburban, and they love me on public safety, but boy, we rarely find out how much I hate their cars. So it's not necessarily going to be moderate.